Hi everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Mike Berry and I'm a client advisor at Fpweb.net. Also, I have Joe Byer here with me and he's our SharePoint product manager at Fpweb. Today's webinar was mainly going to focus on the release of SharePoint 2016 and what is new or changing with this latest installment. First, let me tell you a bit about Fpweb.net and why this is a great webinar for you to do your SharePoint information gathering. Fpweb.net is unique because we've seen it all. We've worked on over 5,000 SharePoint farms, and we've hosted every version of SharePoint since it came into existence. We're trusted by the best of the best, and with our 24/7, 365 US support, Fpweb.net has earned the trust of some great folks and the businesses they run, whether they are hosted by us or on premises. We have a couple of Fpwebbers on chat throughout this presentation doing some question gathering, and we'll have a Q&A once we finish. Also, we have a big announcement to make at the end of our webinar, so be sure to stick around for that. Okay, everyone, let's dive into SharePoint 2016. The release date. March 14th was the official release date to kick off SharePoint 2016, and you're now able to download the RTM release for that. Moving on to hardware requirements, there's no real changes here, as you can see from the slide. It's the same as SharePoint 2013. Software requirements. The OS is Windows Server 2012 R2. Or Windows Server 2016 once it becomes available, which we think will be Q3 of this year. SQL, the versions are SQL Server 2014 Service Pack 1 or SQL Server 2016, again once that is made available, which should be Q1 or Q2 of this year. On to boundaries and limits. Foundation, there is no planned release for that yet. We have heard a little bit that they may be working on a version, but there's nothing definitive on that. In SharePoint 2010 and 2013, the recommended content database limit was 200 gigabytes. In SharePoint 2016, you can now have content databases as terabytes. Although it is not recommended, you can now have 100,000 site collections per content database. The previous limit for this was 5,000 site collections. On to the look and feel. SharePoint 2016 was designed to look very similar to Office 365. You now have the app launcher, which is that waffle icon on the top left of the screen. So if you're already an O365 user, you'll be pretty familiar with this. Hybrid. So for OneDrive, SharePoint 2016 has the ability to redirect your My Sites to your existing Office 365 OneDrive. This was also available in SharePoint 2013, but only if you installed Service Pack 1. Sites, going back to the app launcher in 2016, when you follow a site, whether it's on your on-premises SharePoint or SharePoint Online, this site will show up on your app launcher. And search, you can now integrate your SharePoint 2016 search index with your Office 365 tenant. This will allow you to search your on-premises SharePoint using Office 365. However, the ability to view Office 365 search content from your on-premises SharePoint is not yet available. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Byer to run through the new MinRole feature, some topology, and security as well.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hello, everybody. As you can see on the screen, we're going to talk about this new MinRole. I'm assuming a lot of the SharePoint administrators out there, if you've ever researched anything on SharePoint 2016, I'm sure you've heard of the new MinRole feature. So essentially what this is, it's a new way of installing SharePoint. To put it pretty simple. So as you can see on the screen, you have a few different options here whenever you're installing SharePoint. As you can see, there's a web front-end server, application server, distributed cache server, search server, and a custom server for the multi-server farms, and then there's also that single server option as well. So starting up top, starting with the web front end, what this server is essentially going to do is you're obviously going to install this on your web front end. It's going to automatically start the service applications and services that are essentially required to serve the content to your users. Now the idea behind these servers is there's not going to be a lot of services started on here. So the idea is to have the idea is to have low latencies on these servers, so there will not be much communication going on between servers within the farm, if that makes sense. So moving on to the application server, essentially obviously you're going to install this on any application servers you have already provisioned. The application server role will automatically start the service applications and services for more of your back-end processes and things. The idea here is that these servers will be used as high throughput. So essentially you want, obviously, like I said, you want the web front-end services on the web front-end so that the user's performance is fast, essentially. So the next one down the list is distributed cache server. This is pretty self-explanatory. These servers will only run the distributed cache service. As a lot of us administrators know, the distributed cache server is fairly resource intensive. So you want an individual server to run that service on its own. Search server, the next one down the list, that's also self-explanatory. You're going to install this on your search server. It's going to automatically start the search service application and required services to run search. But finally, in the multi-server farm, you have the custom role. This is what a lot of our administrators will use if you don't have at least 4 servers in order to take full advantage of the MinRole. This custom role allows you to start whatever services you may need on 1, 2, or 3 servers essentially. So if you only have a web front end and app server, you can have that application server run the distributed cache, the search, and so on. But finally, at the bottom there, you can see the single server farm option. This essentially can be used to install all services on that same server. This is not recommended for a production environment, so it's best to just use this for testing and development as well. Okay, I think that's all for here. Moving on. So yeah, if you are using a MinRole installation, there are some new features with inside central administration where you can see if the farm is compliant or not. As you can see on the screenshots there, you have a servers and farm page, and then services in the farm page. So this tells you if the services running on that server are compliant with the MinRole. So if you have a web front-end server that's running the search service application, that will essentially say that it is not compliant. Obviously, if you have a web front-end server and it's running the web application services, obviously that will be compliant. So that's also good. One more thing to mention here, in order to properly use the MinRole, you must have at least 4 servers. So if you do not have 4 servers to deploy SharePoint on, you must use that custom server role that we showed on the last page there. The main idea behind this MinRole is to improve speed and performance of the SharePoint environment, essentially. So moving on to some of the topologies that we'll see here. So this is what we call a single server environment or small topology. As you can see, it's just one single SharePoint server. And on this server, you're going to be running all the SharePoint service applications that you need, all SharePoint services. You're going to have SQL installed on here as well. So that would be all in one server. Medium topology here, as you can see, you have a SharePoint 2016 server provision in the custom role. So you have whatever services you need are on that individual server. You have a domain controller there, and then a SQL server as well for that SharePoint server up top there. So another thing with the MinRole, in order to have a true high availability farm, you must have a total of 14 servers. So as you can see here, you have 2 web front ends, 2 distributed cache, 2 search servers, 2 application servers, 2 Office Online servers, which we will also explain here in a bit, 2 custom role servers, and 2 SQL servers as well. So this would be what we call an HA environment will look like in SharePoint 2016. Okay, moving on to security. This is a pretty popular subject nowadays, and there are some new features within SharePoint 2016 that do protect your security. So So starting with data loss prevention, otherwise known as DLP, you actually have the ability to go into your SharePoint environment and define what sensitive information means to your company. So if you're a bank and you have credit card numbers for clients, if you have Social Security numbers and bank account numbers, the possibility that there's probably not a possibility that you want those documents sitting inside SharePoint. So using DLP along with eDiscovery. So eDiscovery allows you, it utilizes a search service application, and it will actually search through the existing files in the farm to determine if any of that sensitive information exists within the farm. If it does find sensitive information, it will alert a compliance manager, and at that point they'll have the option to actually go in there and delete that file, or you can actually have eDiscovery block any views of that file as well, if that makes sense. So it's a nice new feature there. So I think we're going to turn it back over to Mike. He's going to talk about some mobile features.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So the new mobile features on SharePoint 2016 are pretty slick. You now have that touch interface, so you can navigate your SharePoint sites with any touch-enabled device. You also have the ability to switch from mobile view to desktop view, and that touch ability remains the same, which is a really nice feature.
Okay, yeah, I think that's back to me now. So yeah, this will be a pretty popular subject whenever we start working more with SharePoint 2016. So how do you upgrade to SharePoint 2016? So if there's any administrators out there who have upgraded SharePoint 2010 to 2013, obviously you know there's no way to skip versions essentially. So if you're not already on SharePoint 2013, you actually have to go to if you're not on SharePoint 2013 and you're only on SharePoint 2010, you must first jump to 2013 before you can move on to 2013. If you don't have that availability, you do have the option to use some third-party migration tools, which are pretty good into getting your users and content over to the new farm, if that makes sense. And also, we just wanted to mention that one of our next upcoming webinars will be a full session of exactly how to upgrade your SharePoint environments to SharePoint 2016. I think
Thanks, John.
we're back to Mike.
Yeah, so some use cases. SharePoint can easily be used as an ECM, very comparable to Sitecore and Kintico. It's typically more affordable as well, which everybody likes. And SharePoint is still the intranet tool. It continues to grow by 20% year over year. So it isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So some of the new and improved, Project Server is now integrated with SharePoint. Office Web Apps, Office Web Apps Server is changing to Office Online Server. Excel Services is no longer part of the SharePoint installation and is now part of the Office Online Server. If you are currently using or will be using Excel Services, you'll need to also deploy an Office Online Server with Excel Online. It has fast site creation. SharePoint 2016 can store a site collection template and use that template when you create new site collections. This allows you to create a site collection in 1 second. Yes, you heard me correctly, 1 second. And this currently has to be done via PowerShell. And durable links. This is a pretty cool feature also. Most of you are probably aware that when you upload a document, the name of that document is included in the URL of that document. So what happens if you're to rename the document or even move it to another library or a site? Well, with the new durable links feature, this will no longer be an issue. So that means if you send someone a link to a document and then rename it or move it 3 weeks later or what have you, that user will still be able to use that same link to access the document. Please note that this feature requires Office Online Server, which we've kind of already touched on here.
And so, sorry, Mike, I was just going to jump in and talk about this project server a little more. So I'm sure there are a lot of SharePoint administrators out there who know that within SharePoint 2013, project server is actually a separate install. So you had to install SharePoint, then you had to install project server, and you had, if you wanted to patch SharePoint, you had to patch SharePoint itself, and then go back and patch project server as well. Now with SharePoint 2016, project server is actually built into SharePoint itself. So when it's actually just a separate service application. So whenever you patch SharePoint, project server is also patched at the same time. So
right, that is good.
Just want to throw that out there. Okay.
So some of the other solutions, we have a couple retired solutions as of now. We mentioned earlier, Foundation is no more for the time being. We have heard rumblings of a possible release, nothing definitive though. So as of now, we know there is no Foundation version. And also Excel services is looked at as a retired feature. If you have Office Online Server in place, you will still have some of those capabilities though. Then we have a couple threatened solutions, SharePoint Designer 2013 and InfoPath 2013. While they are safe for now, and they will still work with SharePoint Server 2016, Microsoft did announce extended support for those. Not sure how long, but they would be on my watch list definitely. And for our big announcement, we are offering free migrations. All of today's webinar attendees are eligible for a free migration to SharePoint 2016 provided by Fpweb.net. And this offer is good 30 days from the release of SharePoint 2016. Now, moving on to the Q&A, do we have any questions?
Okay, yeah, looks like we do have some questions flowing in. Just start here at the top. Looks like we got one from Jeff Spencer. He says, SharePoint 2016 responsive design. Looks like there have been improvements made to make SharePoint 2016 mobile friendly, but it still lacks a true embedded responsive design. So yeah, hopefully some future enhancements on that piece. Let's see, let's find some other ones here.
Okay, let's see, how many site collections per farm? It looks like, yeah, there's 100,000 site collections per database now. Really, it isn't dependent on site collections per farm, but how many site collections can coexist within that content DB.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. Here's one. How will SharePoint 2016 handle branding? Can we use Dreamweaver to brand SharePoint 2016? You know, from what we know, Microsoft hasn't announced any major changes to the Design Manager, which was introduced in SharePoint 2013. This actually allowed you to use Dreamweaver to create SharePoint sites. Because there have been no major announcement changes for the Design Manager, we expect that Dreamweaver can still be used. Okay, yeah, it looks like we got a couple questions on SharePoint Foundation 2016. We did kind of touch on that, and for those of you that don't know, SharePoint Foundation was the free version. It was available as it was called WSF in 2007, then in SharePoint 2010 is when they changed it to Foundation, and then it was also available in SharePoint 2013. As we said in the webinar here, it's not currently available for 2016 just yet. I think the idea was to have, Microsoft was essentially wanting those clients who use Foundation to move more towards Office 365. As many of you probably know, you can no longer have public websites on Office 365. So I think, I think they might be trying to come out with a new Foundation version. Okay, looks like we got one on the new list view threshold. We did do some research on that. It looks like they actually increased the only thing we have is it says it's greater than 5,000 now. They don't really have a definitive number of what that is, but yeah, I mean, according to the Microsoft TechNet, it looks like it's greater than 5,000 now. If that helps. It looks like we're getting another few questions about the user interface and look and feel. There isn't a whole lot of changes there. Like we said on I think it was one of the first 5 slides or something. The only thing that really makes a difference is the waffle icon in the top left. That makes it look a little more like Office 365.
We had a question come in about moving the Excel services. For those, we're really going to kind of wait until we look more into the migration scheme of things, and could be on the webinar on the migration piece that we mentioned earlier. So we're seeing some questions also around durable links. Are they durable across site collections or within a site collection? We haven't been able to find information from Microsoft whether this works across site collections yet. It certainly works within the site collections, so there'll have to be some more testing to verify if it will actually work across site collections. We do see a good amount of questions also coming in regards to the prices and licensing. That's something that we can gather information for, and if you contact sales at Fpweb.net, we'd be able to gather more information on both of those topics. We have another one here. Can you still use SharePoint for internet publishing scenarios? Yes. You can use on-prem SharePoint 2016 or hosted, obviously, and to create the internet-facing sites. So questions about the recommended content database limit. Again, in prior versions, 2010 and 2013, that limit was set at 200 gigabytes. 2016, you can now have content databases as large as terabytes. That's as far as the specific information we actually received. It was simply put terabytes. We're also seeing a lot of pretty specific migration questions coming in. Again, that'll be one of those things that we'll have to field through the sales@Fpweb.net email address. Those migrations can be, farm specific, so there really isn't a general answer for a lot of those at this time.
Okay, it looks like we have a question on does 2016 allow co-authoring of Excel? Yes, it does, but as we said earlier in the webinar, that will require what is now known as Office Online Server, which was Office Web Apps. But yes, that will still work.
So we see some questions about InfoPath 2013. That was part of our threatened solutions feature, if you will, that and SharePoint Designer 2013. From what we've heard, they are safe for now, and they will work with SharePoint Server 2016. Microsoft has announced extended support on those solutions. So for the time being, they are safe, but I believe, as I said when we went through it on the slide, I'd keep it on my watch list just because we don't know exactly how long that extended support will go.
Okay, looks like we had another question about if there's going to be two SKUs similar to 2013, SKUs meaning one standard and one in enterprise. We have seen some feature comparison matrices put out by Microsoft, and they did list a SharePoint 2016 standard and a SharePoint 2016 enterprise. Got one that says, will search be similar to how it was in SharePoint 2013? The answer to that is yes, it will be fairly similar.
Just so everybody knows, we are filtering through the questions. We're receiving a lot, so we're trying to go through and kind of find the most popular ones and come back through just so that way we can get the most questions answered as we can. And just remember also, if we don't get to your question today, you can always contact us at sales@Fpweb.net.
All right, everybody. Looks like we're going to answer one final question here. We are getting a lot about the migration path to SharePoint 2016. So yeah, if you are on SharePoint 2007 and you want to go to SharePoint 2016, the path there is you have to first go from 2007 to SharePoint 2010, and then from there you got to go from 2010 to 2013, and then on to 2016 from there. So.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you received some good information from our SharePoint webinar. Please don't forget, if you are interested in our free migration, any of Fpweb's other services, or have any questions, just send an email to sales@Fpweb.net. And for Joe Byer, myself, Mike Berry, and everyone at Fpweb, thanks again for joining. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks everyone.